Welcome to Across the Pond, a podcast for leaders in market research to help them grow their insight agencies, with Steve Henke and Paul Griffiths.
Well, welcome everybody, or welcome back. If you've been with us before, welcome to Across the Pond podcast on how to grow your insights agency. My name is Steve Henke. I'm with Harpeth Marketing in Tennessee.
And I'm Paul Griffiths. I'm from Client Advocates, and I'm in sunny Surrey in the good old UK. And today we want to talk about how to get more value from your in-person events. I think Steve and I both feel fundamentally, it's not giving too much away at the start of the podcast, that in-person events are a really, really important part of your marketing and sales mix. And I think we both feel fundamentally that this is an area where research and insight agencies can get more value, either by doing what they are doing, but doing it better, or in fact, actually by starting to do it. So, that's what we've got on today. It's another 20-minute session. We're a minute in already, Steve, so we've got 19 minutes more of in-person event advice to deliver. So, how do you want to talk about this? Do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to talk about it?
Well, I'm going to start by telling you something you might not know. That I spent 6 years of my career producing live events, producing trade shows and conferences in a couple of different industries across the U.S. And it's interesting working on the inside of that industry. You really learn how to do it right. The trouble is most firms do it wrong. Most people, when it comes to networking, do it wrong. But I think there is, to your point earlier, massive value in smartly working in-person events, whether you're an exhibitor, a speaker, or just an attendee and you're there to network. I think there's loads of value. It's being disciplined enough to do it the right way.
Well, I'm going to put my feet up here and I'm just going to listen to the master, because you know far more about this apparently than I do.
A great way to do competitive intelligence amongst the other exhibitors. I mean, there's a lot to do there. If you are a speaker, and often that comes with being an exhibitor, the pay to play kind of thing, talk about a great way to enhance your reputation in the marketplace. But one of the things we need to do better as a speaker is leveraging that as a lead gen opportunity. And we can talk about how you can do that. And then finally, as an attendee, you're there primarily to learn, right? You're going to go to the sessions and learn, but it's also a networking and early stage sales opportunity to get to know some people, to see if there might be an opportunity for business down the road. And I think that's, again, there's a right way to do that and a right way to follow up appropriately and things like that. So there's all kinds of opportunity. It's just a matter of kind of setting yourself up to do them right. So the way that I think about this, jump in, please interrupt me.
I was going to say, I completely agree. In my own experience of, I haven't worked in the industry, but I was thinking the other day, I went on my first in-person conference. It was actually in Singapore in 1996. So 29 years ago. And I was useless. And it took me many, many years to work out how to get more value from events and conferences. But you're absolutely right. They've got so much value in terms of new biz, nurture. I've one of the last face-to-face conferences I went to, I actually used it as an opportunity to meet up with a client where I had an outstanding proposal and actually close the deal in person, because it's a lot easier than doing it online or over Zoom. So I think the value of these conferences and these in-person events, and it's not just conferences, by the way. It might be an event, it might be something that's run by one of the market research associations, either in the UK or the US or wherever you're listening to this from. There are all sorts of, there's the Archive of Social Market Research. They have an event that's great. I'm a member of the ICG, the Insights Consultants Group here in the UK. They do lots of events. It's not just your conferences. It's not just your Quirks or your IIEX or your Qual 360 conferences. It's all of these events, all of these activities where you are face to face with clients, with people of interest, with people you should be nurturing and growing relationships with.
Agree, 1,000%. Yeah, I think for some reason you seem to have more networking opportunities there than we do. I mean, I know that you've got the research, the folks that put the parties on.
Yeah, the research club.
They're based in London, I think.
Yeah.
For us, we've got the big conferences, and then we have chapter events, which are more networking events than they are anything. So there's lots of opportunity regardless of where you live. So I'll give you a couple of thoughts, Paul, and then you can jump in as well. I think I am a big believer when it comes to selling that, and we've talked about this before, buyers will buy from you when they get to know you, like you, and trust you. And nothing can accelerate that curve like meeting somebody in person, sitting down face to face over a cup of coffee and just talking for 10 or 15 minutes. It beats hell out of Zoom calls and phone calls and whatever, and emails and text messages. Yeah. Get together with people in person. I'll tell you, it was really interesting. I think during COVID, when there were no in-person events, it was this, it felt bad. And then when we got back to doing them, I think people have come back with a lot more enthusiasm because attendance the last couple of years at events have been record numbers. I think we're just happy to be back out with people again. And I know the events I went to last year in 2024, I think every one of them was at record attendance last year. And I just got back from the CEO Summit in Florida. And again, it was about that human to human connection, to your point, to close deals, which I was able to do at the event. So I think if you're relying on Zoom calls and telephone calls, it just ain't the same.
Yeah. It comes back to we talked in one episode, I think was it episode 7, about the customer journey and your pipeline. And actually, in-person events, I think are, to your point, they're great at the top of the funnel and the top of the pipeline in terms of creating opportunities, creating leads. But they can be really, really useful at every stage of the customer journey to build rapport, to remind people of what a personable, interesting person you are, or the value you add, or indeed, as we've both referenced, kind of actually getting that deal over the line. If you've sent a proposal to somebody and you can't quite get response on email, but you're at the same conference and you're in the bar having a beer or having a coffee, or agreeing to meet over breakfast or at lunch, whatever else, that is a fantastic opportunity to go, look, can we go ahead with this? What's going to happen? What you can get over problems or issues. You can brainstorm. You can kind of close the deal. So I think you're right, and I also would observe that I think because it's so much more difficult now to get face-to-face meetings with clients and with other people because of hybrid working and people not in offices all the time. Actually, events, I think one of the reasons why we're seeing more value from events is because it coalesces connectivity at certain points where people can go, you know what, I'm going to be there for a day or 2 days or 6 hours or whatever it is, but you can then really, really focus in at that time in a way that it's quite difficult to do because you don't have that much more opportunity to go face to face and go and see a client or meet with them or engage with them. So I think that in-person opportunity, when everybody's coming together at the same time, it kind of just makes efficient, effective sense.
Yep. And let me make a suggestion on how to get even more out of those face-to-face, or to ensure some level of success, is schedule the meetings before the event takes place.
Yes.
So in the month leading up to you're going to Quirks in New York. In the month leading up to that, you ought to be talking, every client that you're talking to, you ought to be asking, hey, are you going to Quirks in New York? It ought to be in your email signature. It needs to be in your company newsletter. You need to promote it on social media, because if you can go into an event with 4 or 5 or 6 appointments already set up, you are guaranteed of some level of success.
Yes.
What you don't want to do is get there, know that maybe you run into one of your key contacts, one of your key buyers, but you can never get your schedules to align, or they're only there for a few hours to sit in on a session and you're going to miss them. Schedule those appointments ahead of time. I'll go to Quirks this summer up in New York. I'll have 5, 6, or 7 appointments already set up before I get there. Even if it's 10 minutes over a cup of coffee, I want to make sure I get some face-to-face time with those clients.
And look, I think that's absolutely correct. And it comes to, I think the success of an in-person event and how you manage to get most value from that is actually in two regards. It's one, it's the prep you're doing beforehand, as you've alluded to. And secondly, it's the follow-up after the event. And too often I see clients go, "Oh, we're going to an event. Oh, what prep have you done? Oh, well, I've downloaded the timetable, and it looks quite interesting. And I've spotted a couple of people I want to talk to." And then you talk to them after the event. You go, "So, what was the follow-up? What were the actions? Where did you did you follow up on the leads? What did you do around this contact? Did you make your notes when you were there so you could actually follow up and remember what you were meant to be saying? Did you send your emails within 4 6?" Oh, no. Okay, but it's 2 weeks later now. All those people that you met 2 weeks ago at that event probably don't remember you anymore. Or when you do reach out to them, it's kind of like, "Oh, well, you know what? You were so unimportant and I was so unbothered about meeting you that I waited 2.5 weeks before I sent you an email to follow up and say how interested I was to meet you." It's like, honestly, just if you're going to invest in these events, and some of them are really quite, they're significant cash investments, you've got to do your prep beforehand and you've got to do your follow-up afterwards. And if you don't, you are wasting your money. Sorry, rant over.
Thank you for saying that, Paul. No. I'm on that same soapbox as you. I think that's where the value is in the follow-up. When I mentioned I was in the industry, or maybe I didn't mention, I was in the industry for several years in producing events. And there was an association of event producers. Okay. And they would do industry studies and send out reports every year. And one of the reports that came out every year, a statistic that came out was 90% of leads generated at an event are not followed up on. And it's just staggering to me that a company, even if you just go attend, you're spending several $1,000s. Think about exhibiting. You might be spending $50,000 and you don't follow up. Absolutely moronic to me. The other thing that happens is, and you made a great point about take notes so that you can follow up in a very targeted way.
Yeah.
I get them after every event. "Dear Steve, thanks for stopping by our booth at Quirks, New York." And I never stopped by their booth, right? It was just was a name on a list, and we fall into this. It's easy to send the generic follow-up letter. Don't do that. Do what Paul said. Be targeted, be specific, because you want, you want that person to remember you just as much as you want to remember them. So absolutely great suggestion, Paul.
Can I just say on that note-taking thing, it's a remarkable, well, I think it's kind of quite a remarkable tale. So I was at a research club event a couple of years ago in London after the MRS summit, and just had spoken to someone really interesting, thought, right, so I need to write my notes. So I always carry a notebook at these things. So it sounds a bit weird, but I went into the gent to write my notes. So I'm writing my notes standing at the sink in front of the mirror, and a guy walks in and says, he looks at me, he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm just writing some notes up. I just met someone really, really interesting." He was like, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a growth consultant. I help market research agencies with their growth strategies." And he went, "And you're writing up your notes?" And I said, "Yeah, so I can follow up with them and I remember what I've said." And he said, "I need to talk to you. I'm an MD of an agency, and that's the sort of thing that I should be doing more of. Can we have a conversation?" He ended up being a client. So that's a real example of where writing your notes at an event really, really does deliver value.
Okay, I got to ask, just between you and me, when you followed up with him, did you say really nice meeting you in the men's room last week?
Yeah, absolutely. Bob at Agency Y,
awesome.
Met in the gents, expressed surprise at what I was doing. If there's ever a warm follow-up lead email to that one, it's kind of, "Dear Bob, lovely to see you in the gents last night. Haven't written that before in a lead conversation."
It's funny you say that, Paul. I do the same thing, and nobody can see this, but it's a little 3x5 spiral notebook. And this is one from my last event that I went to with all my notes scribbled. I do exactly the same thing, because I have a lousy memory to begin with, but I want to make sure I am following up in a very specific and targeted way. And other people say, "Well, swap business cards." Sure, I want to do that, but doesn't help me remember the conversation.
No.
Right. And so great point.
And it's things like writing down, it's that thing about being a human being. So you write down, if you've had a conversation about why you've come here, and or where did you come from? Or you came from Northampton, which is, for anybody listening who's outside the UK, is, it's a couple of 100 miles north of London. Say in your follow-up note the next day, I hope you got back to Northampton all right, because I know you had some trouble on the trains coming down. It's those little nuances that start to build the relationships and, by goodness, distinguish you from other people they've met at the event, to your point, who either don't follow up at all or follow up with a generic email that goes, "Dear so-and-so, thank you so much for being," it's the personalization and the humanity that really starts to make this stuff effective and generate genuine value, I think.
Yeah. Great point.
Perfect.
I'll throw one out for you real quick. It is often that we'll go to a conference with a colleague.
Yeah.
Right. And, tag team, as it were.
Yeah.
And my recommendation would be, don't spend any time with them. Separate yourself from them. Right. If there's 2 of you there, that's twice as many sessions you can attend, twice as many networking opportunities for you, twice as many exhibitors to talk to. You can get back together at the end of the day or the next morning for breakfast and debrief and share information. We all want to hang with our friends because it's comfortable and it's easy, particularly in those sort of kind of stressful environments. Separate from your colleagues and double the coverage while you're there.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And I remember back I mentioned that conference in 1996. I don't think I left the side of my colleague that whole couple of days I was at that conference. And then because I'm looking back, it's like, what was I doing? But anyway, you do, these things you have to learn. The other thing I would say, and this is actually specifically about the measurement of the value, as well as doing your follow-up the next day or the next couple of days in terms of emails and stuff, get them in your CRM system and tag them as having been met at the meeting or the event or the thing that you've paid money for, because that is a surefire way of then tracking that through your CRM system and your pipeline, so that the people that generate work for you and you win proposals from in the future, you can tie that back to 2 years ago, I was at Quirks in London, and that's where I first met them. And some of the value attributed to that conference was 2 years ago. And I think you have to play a long game on some of this stuff, but capturing it in your CRM system is really, really important as a means of justifying the ROI for that conference, but also why you should be going to the next one.
Thank you for saying that, Paul. I think you have to play the long game. We don't always think about that with other channels, but it's like, okay, I met 20 good prospects last month at an event. How come I haven't sold anything to them this month? It's a long game, right? It takes a while to build the know, like, trust relationship. To your point that earlier that, at any given time, only 5% of prospects are into buying mode. Well, you got to wait for the other 95% to finish up with their existing vendors. And when the next project comes along, give it a chance to work. Look back at 6, 12, 18, 24 months and assess at that point. Then you can assess the real value of an event. But I think that's a critical aspect of it, is give yourself an opportunity to realize the ROI. Don't be so quick to judge.
Yeah. And there we have to leave it, Steve. That's our 20 minutes. So we'll be able to get some really good ROI out of their events. Steve and I look forward to, I'm sure, meeting you at those events where you tell us the efficacy and impact of our pod and how it helped them get you even more value from your events. But for the moment, thank you very much. Thank you very much, whoever's listening, whatever your name is, and. Steve, thank you very much as ever for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining us. Paul, always a pleasure. I always learn something when I talk with you. And see you next time, everybody. Thanks so much.
Cheers. Take care, guys.
Thanks for watching and listening to Across the Pond. Get in touch with Paul at clientadvocates.co.uk and Steve at harpethmarketing.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.